What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you are excited about the upcoming NFL draft. We have a lot to get into with regards to it, which is something that we do, really something we have been doing for a very long time here in our daily streams. I'm so lost. I've been all over the place, and I'm a little bit flustered, to be quite honest with you. It's 6:15 Central Standard Time as we start the show. I normally stream every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Standard on the dot, but we had technical difficulties. If you were actually in the other stream, apologies, had to create a whole different one. It was a big old tech mess. The internet gremlins were getting after us, but nevertheless, we are here. And despite starting at 6:15, I am live every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. So you can check that out in the Bleacher Report app. From a live perspective, you can obviously catch it on demand in the Bleacher Report app as well. You can catch it on demand on the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. So whatever is your fancy. And we have a lot of things happening, actually, which is why I'm frustrated, or not frustrated. I'm flustered. I can't even get my words right, basically, these days. So every Tuesday, every Thursday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. That doesn't change. That's draft season, off season, in season. I'll be here every single Tuesday and Thursday. Don't worry. We survived the time change. We can survive anything here. But again, apologies if you found us late because you were waiting for the other show to start. We are live here, obviously. And this week is a little bit different. And next week's obviously different because next week is the NFL draft. This week, you get me on Tuesday, and you get me for the full 30 minutes, even though we started at 6:15. So apologies again if it got all, jumbled for you. But not only do you get me on Tuesday at 6/6:15 p.m. Central Standard Time, you get me on Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm going to start manifesting that. And you get me on Wednesday. Actually, I already messed that up. I'm totally off. Again, I'm all over the place. There's so many things happening. Let's try this again. You get me on Tuesday at what should have been 6 p.m., but actually at 6:15 p.m. Central Standard Time. You get me on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central. Actually, I think it might be at 5 p.m. Look, the point is, let me look this up right now because I'm all over the place. All right, one last time. We can do this, everybody. So Tuesday, 6 p.m., Wednesday, 5 p.m. All right, I knew it was something different. So Tuesday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, Wednesday, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, and Thursday, going to double check the time here so I don't mess this up and drag us even further into this rabbit hole. At 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, you get me and a whole crew of creators here in the Bleacher Report app that you know and love. You've seen covering other teams. They're not as cool as me, obviously, because they don't cover the Dallas Cowboys. That being said, we are doing a mock draft tomorrow, Wednesday show. And again, all these will be available on demand in the Bleacher Report app and also on demand on the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel. And I'll put all these, as always, on the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel so you can have access to that. That will be a fun one to upload for you, YouTube channel, the creator mock draft. On Wednesday, we're going to have a bit of a war room session. You and I, we're going to discuss what we like. This is a first round mock draft and we can trade. So it will be interesting in the moment to see if there are other creators who represent other teams who want to come up to 12, or maybe there's an offer enticing enough for us to go up from number 12. That's the whole point. So Wednesday, we're going to put together kind of our big board players we like at 12 overall. I know last week we discussed ideal targets at 12, but we're going to put together, an ideal plan, a smash glass in case of emergency plan, and a holy crap, we got wiped out plan, kind of like 2021. What do we do right now? That is the purpose of Wednesday's show. Thursday, obviously, is the mock draft with all the creators. Going to be fantastic. I know a lot of them. I've met some of them in person. That's the way our world works these days, is all your friends are on the internet. I promise it's going to be a rip-roaring good time. Today, though, Tuesday, not 6, but 6:15 p.m. Central Standard Time. We finally did it. We finally got through the introduction. It was so complicated. It was so difficult. My apologies. First things first, we have to get to, and that is the news that dropped. It has nothing to do with the future of the Dallas Cowboys, but everything to do with the past, and that is Tyron Smith, as you can see on your screen right here. It was reported by multiple places on Tuesday afternoon. Let's get this tweet up on your screen here. Let's pause that so it's not all over the place. This is from Tommy Yarish of DallasCowboys.com. Breaking 8-time Pro Bowl left tackle Tyron Smith is retiring after 14 seasons in the NFL. Smith will sign a one-day contract on Wednesday to end his career as a member of the Cowboys, with a press conference to follow at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Now, it goes without saying that this is sad. This is Unfortunate because the Cowboys never won the Super Bowl with Tyron Smith, never even appeared in an NFC championship game with Tyron Smith. We don't have to relitigate this. We know it. In fact, we just did it in this exact way about a month ago when Zach Martin retired. I think the only thing to really say right now is you got to tip your cap because Tyron Smith, holy crap, dude, what an amazing career. We obviously knew he was much closer to the end over the last couple of years. And when he left last year for the New York Jets, we knew he was chasing that final thing. And it's unfortunate that he wasn't able to get it. And unfortunately, I've said the word unfortunately or unfortunate several times here. You can add him to the list that Zach Martin's on and Travis Frederick, that triumvirate that was there together for so long. And beyond offensive linemen, I mean, name the dude you want. Tony Romo, Des Bryant, DeMarcus Ware, Sean Lee, Dan Bailey. I mean, we can, Terrence Newman, right? I mean, we're now predating, this era of offensive linemen. Jason Witten, Greg Ellis, the other iteration of offensive linemen in terms of their experiences with the Cowboys, Mark Colombo, Leonard Davis, Kyle Kozar, Julius Jones, Marion Barber. We can go on and on and on and on. Different players, different positions, offense, defense, special teams, who the Dallas Cowboys failed and who the Dallas Cowboys ultimately could not help reach the promised land. It is sad. I see you, Leonard Leap, in the chat. I saw you in the first stream, Leonard, so thank you for fighting through the internet yourself and making it to the proper one. Apologies for the technical difficulties. But it's a bummer. I mean, it's a bummer. Somebody tweeted at me. I was, full disclosure, driving most of the day on Tuesday. And so that's also why I'm a little bit flustered. But somebody tweeted at me and said, it's kind of weird that we say how the Dallas Cowboys had all these Hall of Fame players, yet, they have nothing to show for it as a team. And it's kind of like, yeah, I know. That's the problem. That's the point. Is it the players' fault? Absolutely. We need to hold the players accountable. It's partly the failures of Tyron Smith and Zach Martin and Dak Prescott and Tony Romo and all, pick the name from the list that we just talked about. But it's also ownership and the front office, right? I mean, at some point, there's just a singular common denominator. I don't think it's fair to blame the front office for 100% of this drought, that one member of the front office refused to call it. But I mean, ultimately, it's just unfortunate. That's I think the best word. I don't want to use the word sad because I think that Tyron Smith had a Hall of Fame career. I think he and Zach Martin will probably go into the Hall of Fame together in 2030 when they're both eligible. And man, what a duo they were. And again, Travis Frederick obviously is a part of that. It just was a special time. And I think the real kind of nirvana of it all was probably 2015 to 2016, which is strange. That 2015 team, even though Tony Romo missed 12 games, that offensive line was incredible. That was the group that Darren McFadden got to run behind. Lyle Collins, obviously his rookie season playing left guard. And then in 2016, when, Zeke Elliott arrived and Dak Prescott was a rookie, again, truly the kind of prime peak version of that group together. And then obviously in the years that followed immediately, things began to change, and the Guillain-Barré syndrome with Travis Frederick and all these different things. I mean, Joe Looney having that admirable 2018 year. But Tyron Smith, it will be wonderful to hear him speak, even though he hasn't really spoken a lot, throughout his career. It's just, it's funny. I mean, we're about to get to draft talk as it relates to the future of the Dallas Cowboys, but this is the first show that I'm doing for Bleacher Report, and it's going up on YouTube. By the way, on our YouTube channel, I had an interview with Travis Hunter that dropped on Tuesday, so you should go check that out. But the Cowboys drafted Tyron Smith in 2011. Which was 14 years ago. And I love to kind of connect different things, and not just sports, but in life. But we're 2 days removed, the world is, from Rory McIlroy winning the Masters and finally avenging that, that collapse he had in 2011. And, obviously, as Rory won the Masters, the big discussion was, man, it took forever. It took those 14 years, and obviously the 10 years in terms of winning any major and completing the career Grand Slam. But relative to the Masters specifically, 14 years is forever. And that was, when the Cowboys drafted Tyron Smith. And I recognize that Tyron played his last year in the NFL with the New York Jets. But, you were talking about, effectively, I'm rounding up here, a decade and a half, which is just an enormous amount of time to play at an incredibly high level. And beyond the fact that Tyron was just this amazing player for the Cowboys, he also was a point of brilliance from the front office. And that's a weird thing to kind of talk about a player relative to, the talk around their retirement. But when the Cowboys negotiated, speaking of that 2014 year and Rory McIlroy's career Grand Slam journey beginning, it was in 2014 when the Cowboys negotiated an extension with Tyron Smith, and it was the first of its kind, really. It was the first in the land of the new CBA, which was instituted, obviously, in 2011, that implemented the rookie wage scale. And that meant, that once a player who was drafted in 2011 reached a point of being contract extension eligible, that getting ahead of the curve was so brilliant and cunning, which the Cowboys did with Tyron Smith. It was an 8-year extension that they brokered in 2011, and something they were able to, alleviate salary cap space from and kick the can down the road with regards to over and over and over again. And I don't know where that spirit of foresight went, and I don't know where that spirit of aggression went relative to constructing your team in a financially, responsible way. But they have clearly departed a long ways from that initial moment in 2014. And speaking of 2014, you can't talk about Tyron or that year without mentioning, I would offer that that's maybe the most precious year that Cowboys fans hold near and dear to their heart throughout the era of the drought, which is now almost 30 years old. That was a really, really, really special year, and that was certainly peak Tyron Smith. Everybody obviously remembers the Odell catch game, which the New York Giants lost. The end of that game, the Cowboys won because Tony Romo hooked up with Dez Bryant in the back of the end zone, and Tyron Smith absolutely bodied Jason Pierre-Paul twice on that singular play, allowing Tony Romo the time to find Dez Bryant for the game-winning touchdown. So an ultimate salute to Tyron Smith. Thank you for just the wonderful memories, and wish you all the best health, wealth, and happiness in retirement with you and your family and friends. All right, that being said, let's get to the draft. I did think that we had to devote some time to Tyron. And this came from Stephen Jones on Tuesday as well. Shout out to Todd Archer of ESPN. This is his tweet. Stephen Jones on 105.3, The Fan, on the upcoming draft. I don't necessarily see us moving up based on the way the board is coming together, but let me move my mouse here, could see a situation where we move down. So I'm going to repeat this so that we understand where Stephen Jones is coming from. And I think this is important that it's coming from Stephen, because outside of the drought, fiasco line at Brian Schottenheimer's press conference, Stephen Jones has kind of been cooking this offseason. Now, I'm not going to go as far as saying he's cooking with gas, but this is like Stephen Jones got like a pellet grill. You know what I mean? Like, he's feeling pretty good about himself. Like, he made a pulled pork or something like that. Like, he's standing kind of tall. Like, he's cooking a little bit, fancy style this offseason. And I think he deserves some kudos and credit as well. Again, outside of, the air quotes drought thing. So one more time here, because let's lay out what we're looking at here. Stephen Jones said on 105.3 The Fan on Tuesday. I wrote about this, by the way, at bloggingtheboys.com. I think it's going out on Wednesday morning. Might go out Tuesday evening. I need to check. Like I said, I'm all jumbled. But Stephen said, I don't necessarily see us moving up in terms of moving higher in the draft order. Higher as in closer to the number one overall pick, based on the way the board is coming together, but could see a situation where we move down. Now, let's contextualize this a little bit here. The Cowboys currently sit at 12 overall with regards to the NFL draft, and they have not moved up in the first round of any NFL draft in 13 years now. 2012, 1 year after Tyron Smith's draft, by the way, was the last time in which the Dallas Cowboys moved up. We have seen them move back 3 times since then. In 2013, Dallas moved back with the San Francisco 49ers and ultimately netted a third-round pick. They took Travis Frederick and J.J. Wilcox. That was, pretty profitable move for the Dallas Cowboys. And from 2013 for forever, they didn't do anything. They just stuck and picked wherever they were in the first round. But then came 2021, when they were picking about as high as they are right now. They were originally 10th overall. The Cowboys were 4 years ago. And we all said, and this is why we're going to prepare a we got wiped out scenario during Wednesday's War Room, stream show here as well. But we all said, it's going to be Patrick Surtain or J.C. Horn. One of them is going to be available at 10. Turns out they weren't. Turns out they went 8 and 9, and the Cowboys were stuck. And when they were on the clock at 10 overall, we were all screaming, get out, trade back, move back. Thankfully, although not really, the Philadelphia Eagles wanted to come up because they wanted to jump the New York Giants, who had the 11th overall pick. Philly jumped from 12 to 10 with Dallas, took Devontae Smith. I would argue that worked out pretty well for the Eagles. Dallas obviously had 12, and then the Giants, because their dude got taken from them, decided to move back with the Chicago Bears, who were coming up at that point to 11 to take Justin Fields. Obviously, in situations like this, what Stephen Jones is intimating is that maybe a quarterback is going to fall. That's what you're always hoping for. But it can be a non-quarterback, like it was Devontae Smith for the Eagles. Dallas obviously took Micah Parsons at 12, and the rest is history. like the fact that they lost the foresight that they had relative to contract extensions that we talked about with Tyron Smith, whatever. I do want to say, by the way, just because I find it funny, right before we get back to the trade back situation that Stephen Jones outlined, that 12th overall pick that the Cowboys ultimately used to take Micah Parsons is one of the most influential picks in NFL draft history. That pick came to the Cowboys by way of the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, we just talked about this. The Eagles acquired that pick from the Miami Dolphins, who wanted to move up from 12 to what became the 6th overall pick. They took Jalen Waddle. That was early in the 2021 draft, obviously. That pick, that 12th overall pick that Miami sent to Philly and the Eagles obviously sent to the Cowboys, Miami got that pick from the San Francisco 49ers. How did they get that pick from the San Francisco 49ers? In the 2021 draft, when they had the 3rd overall pick, the Miami Dolphins, and they traded it, obviously. And, 49ers were going up to get Trey Lance. So the Trey Lance trade ultimately was part of the domino sequence that led to the Cowboys landing Micah Parsons at 12. It is kind of funny the way that fate tends to work itself out. But I wanted to look at the consensus mock draft right now. Shout out to NFL Mock Draft Database, because this can kind of tell us what could be happening, what might be happening relative to potential opportunities for somebody to move up. I also mentioned, by the way, the Cowboys have traded back 3 times in this last decade and change. 2013 and landed Travis Frederick. 2021 landed Micah Parsons. And then, in case you forgot, last year the Cowboys moved back from 24 to 29 with the Detroit Lions. They landed Tyler Guyton. Jury's still out a little bit there. And ultimately a 3rd-round pick as well that became Cooper Beebe. In the Micah Parsons trade back, Dallas got a 3rd-round pick that became Chauncey Golston. So, all right, this is the consensus mock draft. And if it isn't obvious what that is, if you don't know, this is what it sounds like. It's the consensus mock draft, the way that mock drafts are mostly seeing players go relative to teams. So you got Cam Ward going number 1 overall. Travis Hunter, interview up on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel that I had with him, going number 2 overall to the Cleveland Browns. I asked him about playing in Cleveland, so you can go check that out. 3, Abdul Carter to the Giants. That sucks. Will Campbell to the Patriots at 4. Mason Graham to the Jaguars at 5. Ashton Genty to the Raiders at 6. That's why all the Cowboys fans have kind of let go of this idea, because it seems far-fetched now. We've got Jets going O-line. We've got Jalen Walker going to the Panthers. We've got Shador going to the Saints at 9 overall, which makes all the sense in the world, obviously, right now, especially in the aftermath of the Derek Carr news from last week. All right, so Tyler Warren going to the Bears. That'd be fun to watch. I mean, just in general, because of what they're doing there. I'm really excited about that potential just as an NFL fan, but that's neither here nor there. Will Johnson, this is the flashpoint for the Cowboys. Will Johnson going to the Niners at 11 overall. He's certainly a name that could be in consideration for the Cowboys at 12. We've discussed this many different times, but consensus mock draft has the Cowboys doing the right thing, taking Ted McMillan at 12. So who's here? Who's still on the board? Who's lurking from 12 and beyond that somebody could want to come up and get? I think that the real answer is probably Jackson Dart. Again, I think I lost the screen share. Goodness gracious, my computer freaked out. All right, we lost the screen share. Let's get this back up here. All right, the most likely way that this works for the Cowboys, in my humble estimation, the most likely way Dallas is able to successfully trade back is if one of these teams right here, this whole kind of territory that we're looking at here, you see the Steelers taking Jackson Dart at 21 overall. Somebody is in love with Jackson. Somebody feels like we can't wait, we can't risk it, we can't chance it, we've got to do it. And I don't know what quarterback needy team is here that you're worried about if you're, say, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Somebody has got to be in this mix for the Steelers to say, nope, we're not waiting. We're not going to wait 9 more picks. We're not going to risk our dude going off the board. We're going to go up and we're going to get him. But again, I equate it to not what happened to the Cowboys in 2021, but what happened one pick after Philly came up with them, the Giants, because their dude in Devontae Smith got taken from them. They said, all right, who wants the quarterback? Justin Fields was the one who was dropping at that point in time, and it was Chicago. Chicago came up, I think, from 19 at that point in 2021, and the Giants were able to move back and ultimately took Kadarius Toney. That not necessarily worked out well for them, but it did for the Chiefs at one moment in time, at least. So that being said, I really don't know who. I respect that Stephen Jones is saying that it's kind of looking like a trade back could be possible. As my Apple Watch is now listening to me, I've got all sorts of technology happening around me. The machines are taking over. Where are John and Sarah Connor when you need them? But I really don't know. I mean, do we think Seattle? I mean, it seems so unlikely given that they paid Sam Darnold, but they have no real, answer at the future. Even then, the question here is who needs the quarterback? And even if they don't need the quarterback, who's the guy? Is somebody in love with Matthew Golden? Is somebody in love with Ted McMillan, right? Are you willing to move back if you're the Cowboys, right? Maybe the Cardinals are the team in love and you move back to 16 and you're able to survive and you're able to wait and you're willing to settle for Matthew Golden. That's maybe one way to look at this. But I just don't know of the teams between Dallas and Pittsburgh, because they're the most quarterback needy team at this point in time here. If we look at this, Miami doesn't have a quarterback question, not one that is worth, involving all of these hypotheticals, trading draft picks, et cetera, et cetera. Indianapolis obviously has a question, but has some options to figure things out by way of Anthony Richardson and now, Daniel Jones. But Atlanta obviously has Michael Penix Jr. Arizona has Kyler Murray. By the way, a totally separate note here. I refuse to let go of a belief in Kyler Murray. I mean, I might pick the Cardinals to make the playoffs this year. Like I will always on some level believe that he can figure it out. I just am in love with his game. Cincinnati doesn't have a quarterback question. Seattle kind of does. Like we're saying, Seattle kind of has a little bit of a question. We don't totally know how. Maybe Sam Darnold gets Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins in Atlanta, right? Like maybe he's the guy and he signs the contract and we think like, oh, this is all, slam the door shut. And then it ultimately doesn't wind up being the case. I don't think that we, feel like Tampa or Denver are going to have any kind of, thoughts on this matter. So Pittsburgh is the only real chance. And if they feel like Jackson Dart might make it to them, and obviously whether or not they get Aaron Rodgers impacts this to a high level, then I just don't see a way in which the Cowboys trade back, which was the report last week. Last week, the Athletics, Diana Russini said on her Scoop City podcast that, chatter around the NFL was that a trade back was going to be unlikely in general in the first round. It's kind of a year in which you can kind of let the board fall to you, which is why, look, if I asked you, who are you trading up for, right? If I said, do you want to trade up? That's maybe the better question to ask. You're the Cowboys. You're running the creator mock draft on, what's today, Tuesday, on Thursday with all the creators here in the Bleacher Report app. You get to make the decision. Who do you want to go up for? I'm assuming that you're saying nobody. I don't want to move at all. I mean, I don't want to move up, for any reason. There's nobody who is worth risking it all for, right? In fact, like we're kind of talking about here, I think the first opportunity I can wave something at you to move back, you're like, hell yeah, I'll take it. I'll move back to 16. I'll move back to 21. I'm totally down. Give me that extra third round pick. I'm more than happy to move down because I don't love the options in a like gotta have it sort of way. If Ted McMillan or Matthew Golden or, Will Johnson are Cowboys, I think we're celebrating, rightfully so. But we're celebrating because the value matches the investment. The return on investment is incredibly likely to be positive because of the factors at play. So going up is really impractical for the Cowboys for all the reasons that we just outlined. And therefore, it is impractical for any other team, which is why you would need that anxiety to exist within another front office. You would need somebody to say, the quarterback is going to go. We have to move up. We have to move up to go get him, because if not, we're not going to have one. We're going to be stuck. It's going to be horrible, and we don't know what we're going to do. Let's take a look. I've been talking about that 2021 NFL draft. Shout out to my friends at Pro Football Reference. This is 2021. So let's look at the top here. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence was the number 1 overall pick. This is San Francisco, obviously moving up to get Trey Lance. Like I said, that proved to be rather consequential for a lot of teams. Jalen Waddle went 6. Like I said, that was the trade that Miami made with Philadelphia. Then Philadelphia came up to 10 with the Cowboys to take Devontae Smith. And then Dallas took Micah Parsons at 12. Again, the pick that was Philadelphia's. But before that, it was Miami's. And before that, it was San Francisco's. So, yeah, kind of wild times. Anyway, this was Justin Fields. This was the pick. After Philly took Devontae Smith, the Giants said, we got to get out here. We got to move back. It wasn't 19. It was 20. I was really close where New York traded back. That being said, did any of these teams in 2021, before Chicago at 20, this is the gap here. This is kind of what we're looking at here, right? With Dallas at 12 and Pittsburgh at 21 here in our current moment in 2025. This is a really similar comp. Let me get my mouse off of there so it's not confusing you. Who here had a quarterback question? You have to rewind the clock and rewind your frame of mind and put yourself in a 2021 mindset here. So what happened here? Were there any teams? Was Dallas in the quarterback market? Obviously not. And this was moving back. Obviously, the Cowboys were willing to let Justin Fields go. Again, whatever. But did the Chargers? No, they didn't have a question. Did the Jets? That is what it is. Did the Patriots at that point in time? They did, but they took Mac Jones. Obviously, this was coming off the Cam Newton year, and they had a new future and all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. Did the Cardinals? Obviously not at that point in time. with Kyler Murray still working, et cetera, et cetera. Did the Raiders? They were still operating in the Derek Carr era, so they did not. Miami did not. And Washington was figuring it out, did not have Jaden Daniels on their roster, obviously, at that moment in time. But that was a really weird Washington team, and therefore they didn't need to move up. That's what this ultimately is about. This question, this prompt is, which of these teams not only needed a quarterback in 2021, but needed one so badly that they were willing to move up from that point in time and give up the change necessary to get to 11 where the Giants were. And Chicago was the answer. Chicago said, we cannot sit here. We cannot waste another year. We've got to go up and we've got to get the quarterback. And it didn't really work out for them, obviously, but you could argue that it did in the long run because of everything that happened with Carolina and whatnot. But that's not the discussion that you and I are here to have. It took having a uniquely desperate team in Chicago for the Giants to be able to get out of it. And I don't remember exactly what they got for that trade. Let's see. Bears, Giants, Justin Fields, and trade. This is what they received. So here we go. Let's put this up on your screen as I'm reading it for the first time here. I should have had this prepared. Whatever. Sometimes, this is how the sausage gets made. So this is from April 29th, 2021, as you can see up here. Shout out to Kevin Patch who wrote this article. So the Bears, way too much. The Bears executed a draft day trade with the New York Giants, moving from number 20 to number 11 overall to select the Ohio State quarterback, Justin Fields. Chicago sent 20 overall and a fifth rounder this year. That was in 2021, mind you, in addition to 2022 first and fourth round picks to secure its quarterback of the future. That's the dream. That's the dream haul right there. Again, we're equating this to Pittsburgh this year, and Aaron Rodgers can ruin our lives again by signing there and rendering this whole conversation moot. But what Chicago ultimately had to pay was at that moment in time, 20. So New York lost 9 picks, went from 11 down to 20, picked up a fifth in 2021. So in that moment in time, and added a future first and a future fourth round pick. That is awesome. That is great. We would love that. We would be very happy if the Pittsburgh Steelers called and wanted that, to make that same kind of trade in order to come up and get Jackson Dart. That's the dream. I mean, that really is ultimately what we would love to see happen to the Cowboys. I just don't think that that's likely. Again, this Bears team was really desperate, and I think this article kind of outlines that. The Bears handed Andy Dalton $10 million on a one-year deal, anointed him the start of this offseason, with Fields falling, however, blah, blah. The move has shades of when Pace signed Mike Glennon to a big deal in 2017, only to trade up later to supplant him with Mitchell Trubisky. Again, Chicago was in the quarterback wilderness for a very, very, very long time. Now, we all acknowledge that Pittsburgh is in that spot themselves, but I don't think that Pittsburgh is as messy of a team, and that's really saying something right now, as Chicago was at that point in time. The Bears have kind of gotten their ducks in a row a little bit, especially under Ben Johnson. So is somebody that desperate? Sure, it's possible. Anything can happen. It's the NFL draft. But I really, really, really find it unlikely, although I hope that Stephen Jones is right, because Stephen Jones has spoken prophecy so far this offseason, and it actually involved a quarterback. In case you forgot, during the NFL owner meetings in Florida, Stephen Jones said this: we've got several things we're looking at from a trade standpoint, but certainly not to a point where we have a deal yet. Added that backup quarterback is still an option, still a priority. And this was after, in case, again, this is all jumbled for you the way that the beginning of the show was, this was after the Cowboys had already traded for Kyrie Lemon, Kenneth Murray this offseason. And what happened a week later? Or even that, it was later that week, Stephen Jones and the Cowboys pulled off a trade with New England for Joe Milton. So Stephen Jones, again, this was checking the app on his pellet grill, saying, yeah, the internal temperature, I like it. It's almost done. We're about to have to pull this. We're about to have to wrap. You know what I mean? Stephen Jones is cooking a little bit here. So Stephen Jones saying that it looks possible like they could trade down. Maybe he does feel like there's an opportunity there. Maybe he has done his homework, which is a rarity for him over the last, decade and a half, pretty much the entire Tyron Smith era. So I hope that he's right. I would love to see the Cowboys trade back. If they can acquire a future second, even at least, I think we'd all be pretty thrilled and pretty pumped about that. Not just next year, but certainly this year, because it would give us all the more confidence that the Cowboys would have something to work with, not only in the present, but in the future. It might cost them Ted McMillan, but I think that's a gamble you're willing to take ultimately if the price is right. And maybe it will be right for me during Thursday's creator mock draft here in the Bleacher Report app. I'm very, very, very excited about that. I will make sure to share all the results with you on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel, where you should like this video and subscribe. You can also follow me here in the Bleacher Report app right down below. You can follow me on any level of social media. We have a very busy 10 to 13 days coming up. We got a lot of stuff happening, a lot of shows in the Bleacher Report app. during the NFL draft as well. And obviously all that will get thrown up on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. So I'm looking forward to experiencing all of this with you. It's going to be a very, very, very fun time. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and say goodbye, and let's go ahead and apologize, because the beginning of this was thrown together with duct tape and glue, and I'm surprised we were able to get off the ground, but I'm proud of us. We persevered, you and I. We did it together. We make an incredible team. Once again, the ultimate salute to Tyron Smith. Thank you for all your years of service. I can't wait to watch the retirement press conference on Wednesday. It's going to be amazing. I'll definitely have some thoughts that we'll share throughout the Blogging the Boys universe. Thanks so much for hanging out, everybody. We will see you next time.